Let's take a look at some charts on Ethereum from this week's article on Brave New Coin. So I'm going to start with the most important chart in the entire article, which is the Google Trends projection for the word Ethereum, which over the course of the week should hit a new all-time high. This is very likely to bring an all-time high for price as well, and represents an enormous amount of new money, new interest, global interest, global searches. What is Ethereum? Where is Ethereum? Why is Ethereum? Who is Ethereum? Anything related to that, all of which is incredibly bullish. The flip side of that is this typically doesn't last very long. And ideally, over the course of the next week and a half, maybe we see a blow off top, potentially. I'm watching for it very closely. Obviously, it's important to gauge how you play this if you're trading this. I'll talk about that at the very end. But wow, one of the first charts to actually show a multi-year all-time high on Google Trends. Bitcoin's close behind, but currently Ethereum is surpassing it in the search history, at least relative to where it was in 2018. Searches for Bitcoin eclipse everything for the most part when you compare it head-to-head, but ETH search interest is skyrocketing along with price. Hash rate also skyrocketing along with difficulty. If you pay attention to any of the graphics card headlines, most of them are out of stock. They are being sold on aftermarket for, I don't know at this point, double, triple, quadruple price, MSRP. A lot of that has to do with people trying to mine things like Ethereum, or anything really, with these GPUs. On the flip side, as Ethereum transitions to proof of stake, this cash cow will die, ideally over the next 2 years, depending on how long it takes them to actually transition the network. Another important chart, if we're talking about supply and demand, how much is locked in DeFi? Surprisingly, total ETH has actually fallen, even though total USD value is somewhere around 20 billion. Thankfully though, ETH staked in the 2.0 contract is exceeding 2 million. So basically anything that left DeFi at this point has migrated equally into some other supply sucking vehicle where this cannot be sold, it cannot be moved, it cannot exchange hands. It is there for the next 2 years or forever or tomorrow, however long it takes them to transition the network. But in the near term, incredibly bullish because it can't be sold. It just is removing supply from the equation. Here's transactions and transaction fees, and if you've interacted with the Ethereum network at all over the past week, you'll know that fees have been getting outrageous again, just as they were in August 2020. Not quite August levels, but getting close very, very quickly. Transactions per day also approaching or exceeding in some cases the August levels, not quite the July levels, but I certainly expect this rally transactions to just even move beyond the previous all-time high. And to see fees actually explode is a good thing for the network because it tells the developers and the miners that, hey, we better get our stuff together or this whole thing's going to collapse. Now, the miners are fat and happy because they're getting an insane amount of fee reward on top of the block reward. At this point, it's probably 50-50. It's probably 50% transaction fees, 50% block reward. So they're happy. But what they may or may not realize is that's obviously not sustainable and won't last, and eventually just prices people out of using Ethereum. All right, let's look at some technicals. Looking at market caps, ETH had a relatively good Q4 compared to most other alts. Didn't outperform Bitcoin. Its Q1 has outperformed almost everything, probably not Stellar. Stellar might be up 100% or more at this point. But most alts are seeing multiple 30% days here. So we're getting in the late stages of a just insane pullback that is coming. So be prepared. Be ready for it. Have a plan. If you're mega margin long, have a plan. Have a plan if you're long and it dumps while you're asleep to try not to get margin called because it's coming. I don't want to be the doomsday preacher, but the longs that are late will get culled. They will be sacrificed to the gods, and tears will be shed. So be ready. But Ethereum so far, doing quite well. Looking at the 50, 200 EMAs, Bitfinex long shorts, yearly pivots, VPVR volume, and RSI, all of this is crazy bullish, right? It's far above the 50, the 200, sort of nestled in between the R1 and the R2. The R2 is somewhere around 1200. Let me just check on a separate screen here. Yeah, so we're approaching the R2 as I'm recording this video. We're trying to sneak above it. So if the R2 breaks cleanly, we should see the R3, which will be an all-time high. I'm pretty sure on every exchange. Yeah, 1600 is the next move up. So you can treat this as a ladder. If it climbs this rung successfully, 1600 is the next move up. Do I expect that personally? I don't. Whatever's happening now to be 4/5 of the way through till the top, maybe we spike some crazy wick to 16. Coinbase is down every 5 minutes. Kraken's under heavy load. I'm sure Binance is. There's just, again, all of this goes back to the Google search data. You're getting all these new people creating all these new accounts on all these platforms all over the world. And that's just FOMO, FOMO, FOMO. And at some point, sooner rather than later, that's just going to peter out and come tumbling down. It wouldn't surprise me if we get an Eiffel Tower all the way back to, say, 700, back to the 50 is what it will probably end up being, the 50 EMA. There's not a lot of volume support up here. I don't expect it to go below 500, but there's a yearly pivot there as well. The 200 daily moving average will probably be around 500 by the time this rally's done. But all that's worth taking into account. I mean, you can see volume here, multi-month highs, and aside from March, probably 18-month highs. Just a ton of FOMO exuberance up here for sure, undeniably. No bear div just yet. I don't think we're going to see a bear div with this. I really don't. I think it's just going to be just pop maybe to 16 and then just drop to like 800. Just, one of those nasty elevator up, elevator down, 50% move in a single hour situations. I mean, it's going to get crazy. That's just how it always is. We get all the exchanges, they struggle to stay open on the way up, and then they all crash on the way down. That's just how it works. Long shorts, Bitfinex, just mega long, just insane amount of longs up here. Notionally, I don't even know if this is 200 billion or more at this point. It's insane, right? Like this is a lot of long interest up here. None of it's at any risk of being margin called. Even if we'd have to break below 200 for any of these to really get super nervous, I think. So I think these guys are all okay up here. Looking at one version of a pitchfork, 3 lines here, projecting a rate of change, sell zone, buy zone. Now, as euphoric as you may be if you're in a long position here, the pitchfork is definitely showing warning signs that this rally is in its last legs, in its last days. It is rather uncommon that this actually pushes beyond the rate of change. That's like new paradigm stuff. You can clearly see we're parabolic here, as is, just basically vertical. Be careful. This is not an add more situation for me. Looking at the daily cloud, support is around 800. So that's definitely a buy the dip opportunity should price decide to go south 20-30% over the next week. This may move up a little bit to support based on the daily closes of the next week, but it looks like 800 is where that support's going to be in the meantime. And then lastly, ETH BTC, kind of all over the place. I say this every time I talk about ETH BTC. To me, it's just untradeable. It is highly volatile, highly unpredictable. This looked like it was going to be bearish curtains, game over situation. It saved itself at 0.25, a historic support zone. I wouldn't have bet on that. I didn't bet on that, but it certainly makes sense that it bounced where it bounced. It did have a bullish divergence. I like 0.5 eventually, probably by the end of the year. I think a lot of people are watching 0.38. There's a yearly pivot there. There's a horizontal there. So there's probably a decent trade between 0.38 and 0.50. I don't really see massive upside from there in the near term, just based on how volatile this entire range has been for the past 2 years. It's hard to just expect that this is going to have this massive bullish rally and outperform BTC over a long period of time. It'll have its moments, its days, its weeks, But from what I'm seeing here, I don't see just mega strength in the near term. So overall, welcome all the new people. I hope they're somewhat prepared to buy the dip. They're not all in, they're not scared, they're not FOMOing, they're not euphoric, because that will only encourage mass hysteria when this inevitably rolls over in the next week or two.